But we make a lot of them, and then I send everyone.
Good evening, everybody. We're going to start this meeting at 6:36. If we can please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please place your right hand over your heart, face the flag, ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Mr. Rossi.
Councilmember Rao?
Present.
Councilmember Crosby?
Here.
Councilmember Carter?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Present.
Mayor Hupper?
Present. Number 4, we have some speakers for announcements. Barbara Rugali.
That's good.
Did I do it?
Yes, you did.
I did it.
Yes.
You're up. You're up.
Now?
Yes. Yes. I said it right. Come on. I may mess it up again.
So, I need that piece of paper.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Yes, sir.
It took him 3 months.
My name is Barbara Rugeley. I live in Claremont, and I'm Observer Director for the League of Women Voters for Mount Baldy area. And I want to introduce you to your 2 returning observers. We have Carrie Coolbaugh and also Gwen. And my name is Barbara Rugeley. The reason, as the Observer Director, I'm happy to introduce you to these people. You have not been singled out for this distinction to have an observer. We also have observers for 2 other city councils, 2 school districts, Tri-City Mental Health Center, 3 Valleys Municipal Water District, and 2 Claremont commissions. The League Observer Corps helps ensure that citizens are aware of the decisions that are made that impact their lives. They promote government transparency and accountability. Observers are there to observe, not to voice an opinion. They are to they can ask questions for clarification, information, or knowledge with an impartial attitude. Ideally, observers are monitoring both the issues and the way in which the issues are discussed. It has been my experience that most observers gain a great appreciation for the service performed by the members of the agencies, and I expect that will happen here as well. And I'd like the observers to give their own biographies. It might be the last time you hear them speak.
By all means, please come up quickly. Obviously, you know something we don't.
Good evening. It's good to be back. Most of my time, well, I lived in Claremont before I came here. My name is Gwen Davis Carr. Okay? I lived in Claremont for almost 38 years. And I retired from Pomona Unified School District after a number of years. In 2001, had a very good career teaching high school business. When I moved to Claremont, when I retired, I became more active in Claremont. I was a city commissioner of human services for 8 years, almost 8 years. I was also on the board at David and Margaret right here in Verne. I was on the board at Mount San Antonio Gardens for about 9 years. So I have been a volunteer most of my time since I retired from teaching. And that's about it with me. I hope that I will be able to fill out my term again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Carrie Coolbaugh. I grew up in East Whittier. I had a Laverne mailing address for 27 years before I actually moved within the boundaries and could vote for council members. That was in 2019. I went to KCAL-TV for a bachelor's in social sciences. I have a Master of Library Science from the University of Southern California and a Doctor of Public Administration from the University of Laverne. I thank you for your service, and I'm looking forward to observing the meetings once again. I did for a while when everything was shut down, so I don't know that I'll be here, but thank you for your service.
Thank you. Sherry Best.
All right.
Vanna White is.
I was gonna say Vanna's with you.
Yeah.
I got demoted.
She's better, whatever.
Okay. I'm Sherry Bass, President of Laverne Historical Society. I'm here with some announcements for upcoming events. The first is that on the 13th of June, we have a presentation about the secret inland empire. Sounds interesting. By the author of the book, Larry Burns. You're going to be featuring Larry to come present to us at the Hillcrest Meeting House at 4 p.m. and we're delighted that we can partner with Hillcrest again because we will comply with their temperature check and mask requirements. The meeting has to be at 4 o'clock so that they have sufficient staff there to check people in. But this is free, open to the public, and we urge you to attend. I've got flyers, I'll put them out front, and you can also pick up the flyer on our website. So I did want to make that announcement, and I'm looking forward to having many other events and activities in conjunction with Hillcrest and other organizations. Secondly, the truck. Is it okay if Kathy turns around? All right. We're doing all right. Thanks to a couple extremely generous cash donations and also people steadily funding us through the GoFundMe. We have upped the amount of money for the truck restoration, and I listened with pleasure to the conversations about late model vehicles or used vehicles. Let me tell you, when your vehicle gets to a certain age, it stops being a bargain and it starts becoming a real money pit. So we're now at the point that we have to completely replace the rear assembly on this truck. It's thrashed, so it's not workable. And we can stick with the front assembly, but the rear assembly is from out of state. We're having that shipped. And once we get the front and rear assemblies installed, then we can put the tires on, then hopefully we can pull it through the parade. So I've learned a lot of language related to truck restoration. I had none of this vocabulary a year ago, but a lot more now. So your donations are still very much appreciated, very much needed to get this symbol of Laverne's pride up and running and eventually driving under its own power. And then you'll see it at all these fun places, like the wine walk and the beer walk and 4th of July and other things like that. So I did want to let everybody know about the truck.
That's 4th of July volunteers.
Yes, we need people to volunteer to march with the truck on the 4th of July. That would be fun, wouldn't it? We've got kids, well, possibly. I'm actually going to be sitting in the cab of the Sanders tow truck in my capacity as the Jack Huntington Award winner. And that's my ride on the 4th, but we do need people who are going to march. We've got some kids from the high school shop class who are going to join us, but we would love more people to come demonstrate their pride, so do come out for that. And my last announcement is that if you've been jamming with the LVHS and buying marmalade, this summer you can get pickled with the LVHS. We are putting up cocktail vegetables and dilly beans. I think we canned over 50 jars of those yesterday, my husband and I. So those are going to emerge for sale in the next few weeks. So if you like home canned items, then we're the place to go. So thank you for your time. Is there anything else? I think we've got it. Okay, hopefully we see you on the 13th, a week from tonight, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else have announcements not on the agenda item that they want to announce? Wow. Julia Wheeler, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Julie Wheeler. I'm an employee for the University of Laverne and a proud board member of KCAL, which is Cultural Awareness and Social Inclusion Committee on the City of Laverne. I'm honored to be working toward creating a city of hospitality and welcome. KCAL was begun as a grassroots movement in 2019, and our intention is to educate, inform, encourage, and build awareness for all community members in the City of Laverne. The focus on the committee is to provide outstanding understanding that every inhabitant is entitled to equal accommodations within the city. More importantly, we strive to uplift and create a community where all are welcome. And we feel that in our diversity, we are stronger, richer, and wiser to meet the challenges of an ever-changing world. The meetings are held the very first Wednesday of the month. Our next meeting is July 6th, and we're meeting in person at the University of Laverne, that brand new building on Bonita. You might have seen the beautiful glass building, that's called our Ludwig Center, and we're in the sacred space. We're going to be inquiring what it means to become a compassionate city. There's an international movement called Compassionate City, and so we're going to be looking at that. And everyone's welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else on announcements? Jerry, do we have anybody on the phone with a hand raised? Oh, yes, we do. Mr. Allison. This is for announcements, correct? Not for public comment yet.
Five-step program.
Can you guys hear me? Alright. I just wanted to make sure everybody knows tomorrow's election day. Voter turnout in Laverne is still pretty low, so remember to get out to vote. I am running for judge, so I'm the only candidate out this way, out this part of the county, and I've served this city for the past 12 years, so please consider me, but no matter what you do, please make sure that you go out and exercise your right to vote, because it's very important. This state is headed places, and we want to make sure it's headed in the right direction. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr.
Good luck.
Councilmember Carter.
Yes, I do have a very exciting announcement here. Is Tri-City Mental Health, which covers the 3 cities, Claremont, Laverne, and Pomona. Well, we've been doing a search for a new director. The director we had has moved on to San Bernardino County to be the director of the county up there. And so we had an opening. We did a full search. We hired a search firm, and we did a complete 3-4 months search for the right person. I am very happy tonight to announce that Remy Hondo, who has been working for Tri-City for many, many years, is now our new director. So I'm going to turn this over.
Thank you, Board Member Carter, and good evening, Council and staff. I am truly honored and humbled to be here tonight. I am not new to most of you. You've seen me around. I have been at Tri-City for almost 14 years, serving the community of Laverne, and I am also a board member of KCAL. I'm very proud to be working with KCAL, and I look forward to continuing my work with the community of Laverne. It's been a really fun journey for the last 14 years, working over here and implementing the Mental Health Services Act. And I look forward to continuing to do that and taking Tri-City to the next level. My goal is to make Tri-City a household name. Whether it is we think about illness or wellness, I hope people think about Tri-City. And I will be making appointments in the community to understand the needs of the city of Laverne, what the community needs, what your constituents need, and also to be making appointments with you all also and see what your vision for your city is and how can Tri-City be a part of that. So thank you so much for having me here tonight. And again, I am humbled to be here, and I look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Make sure those girls get in now, because they're starving. Thank you. It's a pleasure. Just real quick one. I know that Mr. Allison had mentioned, I'll get my phone working. Tomorrow is Election Day, and as Mr. Allison had stated, it's an extremely low turnout. And it is a primary election. There are a lot of positions that need to be voted on. But the most important thing is where you can vote. And as of Saturday, most of the voting places, the first one was San Dimas City Hall Community Building. And that was open, I think, on the 28th, I think. Now, as of Saturday, St. John's Episcopal Church on Wheeler Avenue, open for 100% voting and drop-off. You've got Holy Name of Mary Parish Hall, and you've also got the Veterans Hall. So those are the places where we can
Drop off right here.
oh, well, and besides the boxes, but these are actually polling places if you're uncomfortable. I know a lot of people are probably uncomfortable. They want to drop their ballots off, want to make sure that they're there or vote in person. And then we have the drop-off facilities in front of City Hall and also at Oak Mesa, a little preschool by the batting area there. So the most important thing is to vote. It's your constitutional right, and we should exercise that because there's a lot of things that are going to happen in this state, and it's very important that we vote. So thank you. Please. Closes at 8 o'clock tomorrow night, and let's get out there and vote, and good luck to all the people that are running. Okay. Mr. Russi, we have no other announcements? Sheriff, nothing on the... We'll move to consent calendar. We have some items pulled, Mr. Russi.
I have one item pulled, it's resolution 2231. The annual agreement.
And who's the person that pulled it? We'll go with the base. We'll pull that from them. We'll go ahead on the consent calendar, and we'll hold 2231. Do we have any discussion on that or any comments?
On the balance of the
On the balance of the consent calendar.
consent calendar, I have none, so I'll go ahead and make a motion unless somebody else wants to discuss it first. But I move that we accept the consent calendar minus the one item as written.
I'll second. Okay, and I need to abstain from item number 6 because I have a conflict within the area.
Okay. Vote please. We're good? It didn't show.
That is a unanimous vote.
Very good. Then we move to item 2231, or, yeah, 22.
Yeah, item number
2231, resolution number 2231 on the contract
537.
Yeah. Someone pulled that?
The item was pulled by Mr. Vaughn.
Mr. Bowen, would you like to talk on the item? Sure.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I just had this pulled because there's been, over the last 3 or 4 years, this has continued to come up, and the idea of no bid contracts. And so what my questions were, and if you'd like, I guess I'll read them. Remove the item for the please provide the following information for each of the 23 agreements. How long has this company done business with the city of Laverne? How much money did the city pay these companies during the fiscal year 2021? When was the contract service last bid out by the city? And lastly, what was the rate increase this year versus the last fiscal year and or contract period for these contracts? Per Assemblyman Holden's investigation last year in July, he indicated that one of the things he was concerned about was the California State Contracting Manual guidelines being met. And those guidelines, I have it here, but I believe those guidelines were 3 years maximum on no bid agreements, unless there's proof for a reason not to. So hence I'm just asking because every year, I think last year there's 27, the year before that it was 22. We just seem to renew these agreements and never seem to put them out to bid. It just seems like an odd practice. If you, I think there was a proposal last year that you take 3 or 4 a year so you don't inundate the staff, but you take 3 or 4 a year, and that way they're on basically a 5-year rotation. But it just seems like that never really happens. They just get renewed year after year after year. So hopefully you have answers to the questions. That's why I sent them ahead, so that we could have some answers. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else want to speak on this item? Everybody on the phone? So if no other further, we'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back up to the desk. Mr. Russell?
Yeah, we got that email later this afternoon. I have not had a chance to do any of the research that was requested. The only thing I think that is available is the information that I provided to council, which was a summary of the agreements and what the proposed increases were. Most of them were around CPI, if there were any change at all. I will clarify for the sake of the audience, there are only about 12 of these that are actual agreements. The others are either some type of open PO relationship where we just have an understanding of what the rate is should we need the service provider to do emergency work for us. And then the balance of the difference between that 10 or so are like agreements where we're actually getting reimbursed money for services, or we're providing services like to the city of Pasadena should they need it. So those 12 or so are the only ones that are there, and the only information that I have available for tonight, the request, is what I just mentioned to council.
Council, comments? Mayor Pro Tem?
If there's no more comments, I move to approve.
Well,
I'll go ahead and make a comment, and I appreciate the fact that Mr. Holden has provided us with the information on best practices. But as I've surveyed our staff and other cities, when it comes to community services, unlike private industry where the bids are usually held and the contracts are kept secret, we actually can survey every city around to find out what their services cost. And as I've said before, and I'll say again, when our services are on the low end of that survey, it's not prudent to go out and do a bid where you're going to most likely end up paying near the average. So I have been one of the proponents that have said, if all this information is known and knowable to us in a survey format, then the interest of a competitive bid is really about providing access to the vendors to our city. Well, there are 83 cities in the county of Los Angeles alone. So a vendor doesn't really have to worry about the city of Laverne being the only ability to gain business, unlike the federal government or the state government even. As a regulated utility, Edison is oftentimes instructed to do a competitive bid simply to provide access to smaller companies rather than continue to do business with the larger ones. So Laverne's not in the same position as Southern California Edison or the state of California or the federal government. We are one of 83 in this area, and therefore we can use the information that best suits our community and allows us to contract at very low prices relative to our neighbors and keep our residents paying the frugal amounts that we pay for the services that we provide. So I'm in support of passing these as they are.
If I may, just one more thing, sorry, I forgot to mention, there were actually two that were put out to RFP this year. One was for the high school landscaping, I'm looking at our public works director, and the other was for our tow service. They are not on tonight because we will be bringing those back just because of timing issues, that's simply it. But we did put two out to bid this year. The remaining fall within the council policy of what they have presented it to staff as far as when we can renew a contract.
Well, I'm a proponent of going out to request for proposals, but also request for proposals when it's necessary. We actually did, and I even asked, I think it was the last go around, that I asked for how much we were spending on these, and RKA was one of the top ones because of the engineering services and some of the other stuff. But the community development director had gone out and done a survey, or actually RKA, and there was probably 8 or 9 companies that they did a survey on, and RKA was, in all the ranges, was as inexpensive as all of them. And not only that, RKA has not increased their prices, I think, over the last 2 years at all. Am I correct, Mr. Igo? Or Cody? They have not?
It's quite a while,
Yeah.
yes.
So I do believe that we should go out to competitive bid when it actually warrants it. And a lot of these services, as Mr. Russi had stated, these are services that we need for our specialty stuff, being pumps, being our controls, being things that are contractors that are basically on call. Their hourly rates are standard. I've looked at all those. They're standard rates. I mean, you've got Seco, you've got Moore Meadows, you've got a lot of these. You've got Lane Christensen. They're specialty contractors that supply us specialty services for our water. 25% of the water we supply, a lot of pumps that cannot be down, and they are on an emergency call. And most of those have just on a CPI, which is normal. Only a few have increased some of the rates, but I think also we have a new council coming in. I think it's probably for the new council to look at and review once they come in to see if some of these warrant a review. And I did have one that I was looking at, and thank you, Mr. Bowen, for bringing these up, that I keep seeing the Intercon Security keep increasing their costs on their benefit packages, and I think at some time in the future, we probably want to review that and maybe look at if it's possible and feasible, we would do it in-house or find another source, but it just seems like their costs are increasing on their benefit packages, which I discussed with you at length before, so. But the other ones, Econolite, Civil Tech, Automation, these are all specialty companies we deal with, but I think when you get over a certain amount of money that these people are going for over the years, I think you do need to go to competitive bid, but Intercon Security is one of those that I think that you might want to review.
That's one we certainly have been looking at, not necessarily that it's reached the tipping point to determine whether we bring that service in-house and start hiring our own parking enforcement officers, but point is taken, if we are paying the benefits and understand we put the agreement in there for the benefit cost, but it has not usually been taken, so the amount, so we have the purchase authority, but we have not, that has not been exercised.
And if I'm elected again, I make sure that we keep an eye on those, as Mr. Davis has also, we're on that committee, and I think it's important that we make sure that the residents are getting the best cut for their buck. We always do. The trash services was a different one. We'll review that again soon, I would imagine, but that's one of our most costly besides water and our arcade. But with that, any other questions, or do I have a motion?
I just want to make a brief comment, just as a point of clarification for those that might not be aware. Back in November of 2020, the new purchasing policy was revised and formalized, and that was pursuant to guidance and input from both the mayor and the mayor pro tem. So new guidances were put in place to ensure that we are making the best use of our resources and making the best use of what we have available to us by not spending money where we don't need to spend money. So rest assured that this is something that is being looked at, has been looked at, and will continue to be looked at.
Thank you, Councilwoman Malone.
And we are passionate about.
Then I will take a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 2231.
Second.
I'll second it.
Vote, please. Oh, look at that. Oh, the camera.
The first one always wakes them up.
Okay.
That's what that button.
Right.
Motion carries. We are now going to recess into the Joint Public Financing Authority, right, Mr. Russi? And then we're gonna, Joint Public Financing, we're gonna recess now at 7:05, and we're going to rejoin right now at 7:05 and a half. There you go. Joint Public Financing Authority.
We can do it faster.
You like that? I thought you'd like that.
Were the minutes on there? Oh, okay, yes, I guess you have to approve the minutes if they're on there.
Do we have any public comment on this?
On the minutes?
On a minute?
Well, I mean, we don't have to open that up.
No, not the minute.
Well,
It's consent, it's like.
oh, just consent, okay. Well,
I'll make the
motion
motion to
approved.
accept the minutes.
Second,
I'll second it.
vote please. Motion,
Push the
It's
button.
up in the corner.
it's in the corner, carries.
Well, none of
There we
the
go.
lights had moved down again. I don't know why the lights moved.
Okay, we're good.
Push your button.
Oh, that button.
Now, basically, we adjourn now, is that correct?
No.
Or we have to open public?
Negative to do B.
Resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks, guys. Keep me up here. Resolution JFPA number 63 of the Board of Directors of Laverne Joint Public Financing Authority approving a site lease and lease agreement and an assignment agreement and authorizing the taking of certain other actions in connection therewith. Would you like to continue, Mr. Russi?
Well read. Yes, I will certainly take it from there, and then we will be doing a little bit of a tag team. This is a follow-up to a prior action or general direction we got from council, I'm going to say almost 2 months ago, as it related to the moving forward of an issuance of a bond for work connected with the gold line. We are looking to issue a bond that will facilitate the work on E and Second, and I will go through that in a minute. But at that time, council had directed us to bring back the necessary documents at this time to issue that bond. We have put together a team, and I'm going to introduce a couple of the individuals that are here, and one that hopefully will be jumping on remotely, but I don't want to try and ruin what Charles put up there. So I have Dan Macelio, and we have Jose, I forgot your last name, sorry, who is the underwriter, and Dan is with Cosmos.
And Jose is a resident, by the way.
And then he is a resident.
2 years.
Exactly. And then Danny Kim, who will be coming remotely, is the bond counsel. So as council remembers, we walked through the concept of the EIFD, which we have established years ago, would be the ultimate backstop. But in the meantime, it's necessary for the city to be the bond issuer for this transaction. And the reason that we need to do that now, or we feel it's necessary to do that now, is the EIFD is not generating enough tax increment at this time, which is pretty consistent with something in its infancy. And these types of transactions have been done before with the redevelopment agency, where the city issues the debt, will pay it until such time as the EIFD can support it. And then we, the city, have a separate agreement with the EIFD to pay us back over a separate period of time. So what we are looking to have the council do is the board take an action, and then there'll be a subsequent and connected action that the city council will take, with a separate report on that. But I would like to, at this moment, just walk through what some of the specifics are of the work that we're going to be doing. We're going to look to issue about a $3.8 million direct placement bond. A majority of that will be used for the E and Second Street work. The remainder, you can go on to the next slide. The remainder will be used for improvements along Arrow Highway at a later date. But at this point, we have done a lot of the design work and specifics, and we're in a position where we're set to go out to bid. Cody, I'm sorry you had told me and I forget.
The intent is to wrap up plans by the end of this month and move forward with bidding sometime shortly after.
And the reason that is so important is we really want to get these improvements done before the gold line becomes operational and this station is being utilized in 2025.
What was that, able to hear that?
Sorry, please come up.
Good evening. Good evening. So at this point, the plans are nearing about 95% completion. The intent is to wrap them up to get the construction ready by the end of this month. After that, we will set a date and time to put it out to bid. Typically, it's 3 to 4 weeks. We want to advertise that, and then we will open bids, proceed with finding a council agenda that aligns well, and move forward with hopefully ultimately an award.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the importance of being able to issue the bond now is to have the dollars to be able to support that activity. And as we had discussed before, this is the primary area that you're seeing in blue where these improvements will be taken on. We essentially are going to redo that entire area as was identified in a prior specific plan of the city of the Old Town Laverne specific plan. And the idea was to do the improvements to improve the connectivity from the Gold Line station through to the downtown as well as the university. And those improvements that have been outlined, you can go to the next slide, will include pedestrian movement, new street trees, landscaping, expanded sidewalks, expanded crosswalks. So the total work here is just over $2.5 million that we look to be taking on. We really want to make sure we identify this when somebody gets off the train and is visiting the area, that they are moving into a new and improved area. This will be the work that will be taken on. We were very careful to, move on to the next slide, to look at bringing in trees that are consistent. We will be removing trees that are there, but we will also be bringing in trees that are consistent within the area as well as lower plant material. We have we've had these reviewed by our landscape consultant, who is also available should there be particular questions. that are made available, but the next slide will show you some of the ideas of the type of landscaping that you can see vertically, as well as then the next slide that will show you the plant materials that will be at the lower level of that project. We will also be looking to integrate, I don't know if we were decided to go with permeable surface, but certainly with some type of a surface that will be consistent with our needs to capture the storm. Now, with that, I will stop, and it's the first time I know council, we don't have actual drawing, but the concept of what we're looking to do in that particular area before we get into the steps of the structure itself, which I will have Dan get going into the presentation. I'll stop here and ask if there are any questions of council regarding what we have.
I'm so glad we're working on stormwater when we're in a drought.
Yeah.
Just a comment.
Always prepared.
Yes. Any questions for staff?
I guess the question I have actually is for the person in charge of the plants. I'm hoping that these are all drought tolerant plantings and plants that we're looking at. Excellent. Okay, no, nothing further.
Everything is native.
Well, not in my backyard, never mind.
No other questions? We'll continue.
Okay. Then what I'd like to do is have Dan get up from Cosmon, who will walk you through the specifics of the structure, the leaseback option, and the details of the issuance of the bond. So,
Thank you, Mr. Rusty. Good evening.
when you're ready for the next slide, just let me know.
Next slide, please. Good evening, Mr. Chair, and members of the board. I believe this is PFA I'm addressing. Well, since we last discussed this almost 2 months ago, as Mr. Rusty mentioned, we did undertake the financing process, and we found a willing or an interested financial partner that offered to outright purchase the financing without having to seek investors from the entire marketplace. And so what this affords us to do is to drastically streamline the process and keep costs to a minimum. So that purchaser is Capital One Public Finance. They're in this sort of market. They buy these sort of financings. And the term that was offered is for 20 years. We had been talking about 30, so it's a little shorter. And the rate was locked in, it's been locked in at 3.65%. As you're all probably aware, interest rates shot right up real quick, right as we started working on this. So we were very fortunate to be able to lock in this low tax-exempt interest rate and be able to benefit from it. So this enables us not to have to publish a lot of extra documents, specifically continuing disclosure documents such as an official statement and then ongoing continuing disclosure. They're not required. So again, financing is much more streamlined, and we're already set to close next week on Wednesday the 15th, should the council and this board approve the actions tonight. So this is just a little bit different than we discussed last time. From your perspective, it's exactly the same. It's, instead of a lease revenue bond, it's going to be more of a direct lease, which I'll explain to you on the next slide, please. So basically, that will still be a leaseback mechanism, where and it's the same agreements that we discussed in concept last time. The city will take a certain city-owned property, and we determine that the main corporate yard of the city is the best suited property for this, both in terms of value and essentiality that the city has in it. At the same time, the city will lease that right back from the joint public financing authority. So this body will be entering into some lease agreements as well as the city. The authority will then be in a position to receive rent payments from the city, which it will assign that authority via an assignment agreement to the actual purchaser, Capital One. And therefore, the city will be making lease payments or debt service payments directly to the purchaser every year. And as Mr. Rusty noted, that Proposition C will likely be carrying the debt service for a while until this infrastructure is installed, which will attract private investment, which will bring the tax increment up that will then be used to pay the financing over time. And just on that note, as far as we're aware, this will be the first financing for any enhanced infrastructure financing district ever. So congratulations, you are breaking ground here in Laverne. Next slide, please. As you'll see on this page, this illustrates the estimated sources and uses. These are actually pretty final, but we still call them estimated because we haven't closed yet, and just in case any minor changes happen between now and next week. But it's about $3.615 million, and you'll have about $257,000 in annual debt service payments over the next 20 years. So next slide, please.
Just stop there for a second. I'll point this out. This is one of the distinctions from the last one. If you remember the debt service in total, we were roughly about 210,000. One of the concerns or questions that council had asked then and had come up from the public is, if we shorten it, can we lower the amount of the interest payments we make? And of course, this achieves that, but we do have a higher annual payment. There is enough Prop C allocation coming in to be able to support this additional amount and still continue the projected activities that Prop C otherwise would take on outside of this payment needing to be made.
So tonight, as is outlined in the staff report, the council, the board is approving a resolution, and the city council will also approve a very similar resolution that will approve the varying underlying agreements and authorize staff essentially to conclude the transaction. Specifically, the site lease, which is the document that transfers the property from the city's possession to the authority's possession, and then the lease agreement, which leases it right back. And then that assignment agreement I mentioned would just be this board approving that document that assigns the right to receive the payments and the benefits under the lease to the purchaser. Once we're through here tonight, if the council so approves and the board so approves, there'll be a signing session, and Mr. Russi and the city clerk will be signing some legal documents, and as I mentioned, we should be in a position to close next Wednesday. So, and then the projects, we can start paying bills. Be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions, council? I just have a comment. So I have talked to other people in the community, and the concern was the leasing of the, actually encumbering the property, the city yard. But the Prop C funds are going to more than pay for the interest rate that we're going to be paying. But also, if anything happens and something was to go awry, we would pay through the general fund. We would pay reserves to pay that off completely if there was an issue. I think that was the concern of some of the residents as far as the fact that we're encumbering a piece of property, which that's what we do anyway. But the point is that we have avenues. If anything happens, we'll be able to pay that back with our general fund or our reserves if there was an issue.
Certainly a direction that council can so choose.
Okay.
I mean, if at that point the EIFD is not generating enough revenue to pay us back, and Prop C for some reason dries up, which is an annual reoccurring amount, so unless the voters are to vote that out at some point, I don't see that would be the case. But if those circumstances were to occur, the council would have options available on how they would like to proceed, whether it's pay off the bond. I think it's the first 5 years there's a penalty or something like that, if I vaguely remember.
Very technical question.
I think it's 10.
Okay, so that would be the only consequence, would be the penalty?
There's a clarification for the residents. I think it's just important to know.
But ultimately, I guess the concern would be that if we encumber a piece of property, that we might lose the property.
Exactly.
And so we have, first we have Schedule C funds to pay the debt, so that would keep us from losing the property. Secondly, we have other resources, and primarily the EIFD funds, once those developments start changing the property tax, that increment to pay it off. And then we have general funds or the reserve to pay it off. So the risk of losing the property
Very nil.
almost no.
I'm really happy the part that we're one of the first EIFTs, and then we're one of the first to actually start the process and take action. I think that's good. And the lock-in rate of 3.65 is like, wow. I mean, we thought that was forever, and it's like, no, it's not forever. We're just, but anyway.
And if I may, our bond counsel Danny Kim would like to say a word.
That's Mr. Kim. Welcome.
Good evening. I just wanted to clarify one point that was brought up. We are not encumbering the lease property in terms of a mortgage. There is no foreclosure right for the bank. There is a right to relet, but the city will never be in a position where it will lose the property.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I think we should open it up. Let's open up for public comment. Thank you. We'll probably have some more questions. Anybody have any questions or comments on this item? Anybody online?
Probably those guys.
So I worry about the residents that have interest rate.
You're on your own.
The residents.
Everybody got their checks?
That's called public banking. We'll get
2.79% and 2.6%, those days are, nobody? We'll close public comment and bring up the dais. Any comments from council on this issue?
I do, yes. Tim and I both sit on the EIFD, and we've been involved for, gosh, many years. And so this whole process, seeing it come through, has gone through us. And so we support this idea in what the future is for Verne. We know the gold line is coming through. We know that our downtown businesses need a pathway from Gold Line to get the residents to come right to downtown to eat, shop, whatever. And so with that, I do want to thank our city manager. His work with others, I understand that, but it's his leadership that got us to work with the county supervisor to get us to be the first person to get these kind of funding where we get percentage back of our property taxes back to the city. So I thank you for that leadership. And where Laverne's headed, so it's going to be wonderful.
No. I have to make a comment too, because it was the previous council also that we were on. I know Don Kendrick was a big proponent of it, and I have to give kudos to have that vision along with our city manager, but also the relationships we have with our county supervisors. And that sun is right. Do I have a halo?
Yes.
Oh, no, that's my wife. The election's almost over. No, I have to say that we were one of the first, and we were pretty much extremely successful in the EIFD, and I think that I absolutely believe 100% that we're going to be extremely successful in bringing a lot of new spurt economy down in our whatever they want to call it, our train. Because they've changed the name 3 times now. What do they call now? The Metro. It's Metro.
Actually, yeah, they were telling me at the last meeting that it's going to actually be called the A-Line.
A-Line.
There it is.
Now that's even better. Thanks, Brad.
Oh, it was that one.
We have to remember. Wait a minute, what are you doing? The ice rod? You laughed at it, First time to observe this, huh? So, without,
I'll make a motion that we pass the Joint Powers Board of Directors adopt the resolution JPFA number 63.
And I will second that.
all those, vote please. Okay, vote please, we got it. Okay, perfect. Oh, we're good. Motion carries. We will close the financing authority at 7:24, and we'll reopen our council meeting at 7:24 in 3 seconds. Number 7, other matters, Mr. Rossi.
You want to hear it again?
This is part 2 of the same issue.
Yeah, it is.
Can we make the motion then, or do we have to go through?
We have to open up public comment.
I think you still should open, okay.
We're going to open up other matters, which is resolution number 2232 of the Laverne City Council approving a site lease, a lease agreement, and an assignment agreement, and authorizing the taking of certain other actions in connection therewith. And this is resolution number 2232. Do we have a motion? Oh, we have to open up public comment. Anybody for public comment? I'd love to see you, but I can't. So, come up, I don't know who you are.
You'll need to stand. Anybody online?
Mr. Mayor, no hands and nobody had email.
We'll close public comment and bring it up to the dais. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion that we adopt resolution. I was thinking that maybe Rick would want to say it.
Well, he's been active.
Yeah, I'd say City Council should adopt the resolution number 2232.
And I will second that.
Vote please. That's okay, we're both burning up here, don't worry about it. I feel like the movie Total Recall.
There's no UV protection in those.
Someone pump the thing for air, would you? Motion carries.
Well, look on the screen, you do kind of have a halo over you guys, so there.
That's the first time I ever heard that one. Public, we have a number 8, which is we're on number 8. Public comments from communications. Mike and Nancy Puff. Did I say that right? Oh, very good, come on up. Please, welcome.
Thank you. I know how
I-
you feel, that's how I.
Oh, wait, I could see you, now I don't know who you are.
No, that's okay, that's how I eat dinner, like you. First of all, we want to thank you for letting us come up and speak.
You're always welcome in our house here.
We have lived in the same house in Laverne since 1976. And that is on the corner of Golden Hills and Linda Lane. And as you know, there was a large opposition to reopening the road. It was reopened, and there is a stop sign on both sides of Linda Lane, both going up the hill and down the hill. What has,
Golden Hills.
not Golden Hill, what has occurred is that there is consistent non-compliance with stopping at the stop sign. When this first happened, I went down and talked to the police department. As a matter of fact, I talked to the police department on five different occasions, from the person at the window to the commander that was on staff. In all of that time, we've had a total, to our knowledge, of 15 minutes of somebody sitting on Linda Lane, waiting to have people run the stop sign. I don't know whether you're aware of the actual terrain there, but once you start down the hill, you're starting down the hill, and in fact, they've had, not soon after they opened it, they had somebody go through the guardrail down to the bottom. What we're asking for is a police presence there occasionally to discourage people going both up the hill and down the hill. We've had people over and they look out the window and they go, my God, that person didn't even come close to stopping. They go through it 40, 50 miles an hour and such. The city can make a lot of money. I don't know what portion of the tickets you get, but it's there for the taking, folks. It's free money.
Who needs a grant writer? Just write tickets.
We're just concerned that someone will get hit, because there's crosswalks there and people walk their dogs and walk, and we're just afraid someday, and it's coming up the hill too, they go 50 miles through. They don't even ever slow down or stop, so if we could just have a little police presence once in a while, I think it'd make it a safer area to live.
I promise.
Video if you want to see it.
Oh, no, I know. Well, I go there all the time, and I'm very, very cautious about what's going on. I'll never forget the second day they opened it up. And I mean, I heard to laugh, but the whole guardrail down at the end of the hill, someone said, uh-oh, there's an end here.
Yeah.
Went right through into the ditch, you know, and it's like,
Oh.
no one was hurt, but I can understand that, and we're public works directors here right now, and we have police presence. We'll check it out, as I know I do that all the time, Mr. Russell.
I was just gonna say, I'll pass it on to
Yeah.
the police.
We
chief.
appreciate it.
We know where you live exactly, and they extended your yard a little bit too, so it looks really nice, but we'll make sure that we look into it.
All right, thank you, we appreciate the time.
Okay,
Thank you guys very much.
thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? Yes, please. If you could just state your name and your address, please.
Ingrid Kendall Galancha. I live on 2540 Kendall Street, around the corner here, nearby. And I've been a resident since '84. And I got something in the mail, I'm sure you all have too.
Yes.
And I was shocked that there was no report of any kind about the water level changes, or what percent we get from other places, or any kind of facts to kind of help us. And it's nice to have a quick order, but it would be nice to have some information for those of us that try to figure out what's going on. So, was there something online that when we should look down, or what kind of information do we get?
We do have information on our website under our conservation corner, but I would ask that after the meeting, our director of public works, who's holding his hand up can kind of direct you as well.
Thank you.
Anyone for public comment? Mr. Gelda? Thank you, Rich.
Two quick things. It dawned on me tonight with hearing the announcements earlier on and with some of what Mr. Russi had mentioned. I think that it would be really good to have legislative announcements a little more frequently as it relates to the things that impact Laverne specifically. When I hear things like as long as we get funding for Prop C and the likelihood of it continuing, I think that's important for the residents to understand how their voting actions can impact their lives directly. And then on a current topic regarding the water conservation, I would offer that perhaps maybe some of the staff can take it upon themselves to look for landscape preservation. As I see the streets browning up now, just a couple weeks in, I really think that the investment that the community's made in their landscapes, in the water that they've spent to maintain those landscapes, and the time they put into loving their landscapes, it would be really helpful if people understood a little more about how they can preserve it as long as they can with the water restrictions that we have. So, just an idea.
Thank you. Thank you, Rich. Oh, that's Rich. Any other comments, public comments? Yes, sir. Come on up. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's been a while. Gary Hunter, I live in Chelsea in Essex. There's a footbridge there going on Chelsea, and about a month ago, there was a homeless person sleeping on the bridge. 2 days. So I called the police department. They come out, 3 units, and they were talking to the guy, and I was doing yard work out there, and the cops leave, and the guy's still there. So I called the police department. They said, we can ask him to leave, we can't tell him to leave. That don't sound right. Is there a city ordinance that can be made up for that? And why not? Any reason why they can't?
Well, Mr. Russi.
I can't speak to the specific circumstances surrounding that individual and the contact that was made, but no, there is not an ordinance that can prohibit somebody from being homeless.
So we in like downtown LA someday?
Just telling you that the
Nothing
law
can be done.
precludes us from saying that it's illegal to be homeless. I don't know if he were camping, that would be something different, but again, I don't know the circumstances surrounding why that.
Well, he wasn't camping, he was laid up for 2 days. All right.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Same here.
Anyone else? Mr. Bowen. How's your shoulder doing?
Perfect, what shoulder?
What problem?
Did you notice it till now? Just a quick comment. Tomorrow we vote. One of the rights that I'm sure everybody considers an absolute, but also 78 years ago today, D-Day. Without those people, we wouldn't have a right to vote. So I hope everybody remembers that when they're in voting, that those rights don't last forever without people that help and back it up. And thank God for that generation. Amen. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Rick.
Do we have anybody up? Jared?
Don't see any hands up.
We're going to close public comment. Mr. Russi.
Yeah, I'd just like to add a little something to the response I gave regarding the homeless situation, because I do know that it is something that, and the chief had mentioned it previously in the budget, we have dedicated, it's either 250 or 350,000 of ARPA funds to be directed towards the police department to assist with homeless engagement, to try and to put together a special team. We do not have the resources to do it on a permanent basis at this point, but we do recognize that we are going to have to come up with some programs. We do have some now. We work through Tri-City and the team does work, but we will be dedicating more resources specifically to the homeless situation and identifying what types of services will best accommodate the population that we have in our community to hopefully help move them out of homelessness. And so that's something that will be coming to council, I'm hoping in the next month. I know that the team is working on putting something together, the police department as well as Tri-City.
Council, who would like to start? Robin, you're
You're all
ready to go.
looking at me, okay.
Well, you gave away your husband earlier, so you can go anything you want.
Thanks, Tim, for bringing that up.
Thank you, very much.
Okay, it's a crazy, I told you a month ago how busy May is, and any of the new members that will be part of the council know that every month, May is crazy in the city, crazy good though. All the high schools are doing all their events. We judged senior projects this past month, and I felt really good knowing we have future leaders out of that high school. Some of their projects talking about what their future is, what they want to go into, and it was fun to be a part of it, and I know a lot of you judged also. Bonita High School softball, they won CIF. I was at the final game for CIF in Irvine, and our high school team is amazing, and they are not losing a lot of seniors. I think they're only losing 3 or 4. And our main pitcher, who pitched 98% of all the games, is coming back. She's only a junior, so we'll have her back. So they did win CIF, they went to first level of state and won the first game. Second game they lost, but what was it, 3-2, Tim? And so I congratulate them. Are they going to be able to come to be recognized by us next meeting?
I don't know if it'll be next meeting, but we will work on getting them scheduled.
Okay, yes, thank you. They deserve it. And next was the Memorial Day ceremony we had last Monday. Just a beautiful ceremony. The weather was great. We dedicated the chair. Do you remember the honor chair we brought here? That was built by Don Kendrick, our past mayor. He's a woodworker, and he built that chair. And he also did a table in honor of those that did not return. And so that will stay at Veterans Hall. The chair will be moved over here with the plaque, and that'll be here soon. And so nobody can sit in that chair unless you return from being missing in action, is how it's described. So it's just it's beautiful. The other event, Tim and I attended the Bagery, right up here. You go straight ahead on D Street. The Bagery,
Bakery and
brew in bread is now open. It's under new ownership. They spent a year getting ready for this, cleaned up the place. They just really went in and did a lot of work, new menu. And it was a beautiful opening, huge, large crowds there, and the food is delicious. I ended up going back with my husband for lunch, and I wanted to try their lunch menu. I recommend everybody go there. Their bagel selection's amazing, all the way to sandwiches, pizza, meals, spaghetti.
And beer.
Yeah.
And beer.
Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to bring up, because I know you all have other things to talk about, is yes, let's get out and vote. As you know, I'm not running again. This seat is open. Do know that if you don't know by now who you want to vote for, don't just say, I'm not going to vote. Get out, talk to people, call people. We're all here to answer questions. Find out about the candidates. Who attends meetings? Who knows the issues in the city? Those are the important issues, and those are what we need for our council. And so I wish everybody good luck. Don't forget, after election, get your signs down.
That's the most important.
There you go.
Mr. Crosby.
The memorial event was amazing, and the Missing in Action chair, can't wait to be honored to be in our chambers. It's very special, and the presentation that we had at our last meeting, and then the presentation at the Memorial Day event was very nice, and appreciate that. I'm on the Foothill Transit Governing Board, and I want to talk about a program that Foothill Transit does with our local colleges. It's called Class Pass. So if you're a student at University of Laverne, or Cal Poly, or the Claremont Colleges, or APU, Mount Sac, or Citrus, if you are taking at least one credit unit, then you can have what's called a Class Pass. And you can ride Foothill Transit for free to school, or to your job, or to anywhere you want to go. That really helps our students to be mobile and to save money on gas right now to get back and forth. So if you're a Laverne resident and go to any one of those schools, I would look into the Class Pass. And it's been going on. It started right when COVID started, and it's just been accelerating. More people get involved in ridership using that as well. So make sure that you do that. Congrats to all of our schools, promotions and graduations that are happening right now. To all of our local schools here in Laverne. And I want to make especially congratulations to my own graduate in my house. So. And then lastly, deepest condolences to the family and loved ones, to the great losses that the city of Laverne has had this past couple weeks. And it's just keep all of them in your own thoughts. Thank you.
Just to reiterate a couple of points, it is that time of the year, dads and grads. So make sure that you are out there congratulating and celebrating and spending some time, especially now that after 2 years of, slogging through a pandemic, people are actually being able to congregate. So definitely do that. I got the chance to sit at one of the commencements for the University of Laverne, and it is truly amazing what some of these students have accomplished, both at the high school level and at the university level, especially having to do so much of their work online, apart from people. It has definitely taken a toll on people's mental health and well-being. So I wish Rumi was still here for me to be able to say congratulations to her, but the work that Tri-City has been doing to combat some of the mental health issues that have arisen, particularly in light of the pandemic, is to be commended. So definitely think about your neighbors when you're moving through that stage and thinking about folks, and do this June time. Just a reminder again about elections. I know some of you may have already voted. I love the new machines, they're so easy. So if you haven't had a chance to try them out, please do so. I will also note that when I voted this past weekend at the Veterans Center, there is a need for poll workers, and obviously it's not timely for this election period, but consider that for the next time elections are coming through, if you've got the time to volunteer, because it's due to a lot of the volunteer workers that are out there working these polls that we can exercise our right to vote, and that's really important. So think about that. It is also June, Pride Month, so happy Pride to the LGBTQ community. Know that you are seen, you are appreciated, and you are loved for who you are. On that note, I also wanted to just touch on a couple of things. I ran into Edward Paget, if you know him, Sowing Seeds. He does a lot of good work in the city, him and his wife. But the food banks are anticipating a higher than normal need, especially in light of inflationary prices with gas and with everything else going on. If you have the means and you are able to, please consider donating and helping out your neighbors. There is also a blood drive on June 15th at the University of Laverne. So if you are so inclined, please do give. It really does make a difference between someone's life and death. So think about it. It's quick, if it's 15 minutes, and if I, who don't particularly care for needles, can sit through it, so can all of you. And last but not least, thoughts go out to the family and friends of former Chief Jankowski, and more recently, former employee Phil Elfman, who passed away in a car accident last week. Life is really short, and you just don't know. The days are long, but the years are short. So take the time to be kind, take the time to have dialogue with each other. We are neighbors, we all live in a community together, and I'd like to keep Laverne that friendly, happy place that I wanted to move to when I was in college. So thank you, that's all. Have a good rest of your week.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
Thank you. I too want to join in celebrating our softball team They did a fantastic job this year, and I look forward to being able to see what they do again next year. The memorial service was truly a wonderful observance for those lost and for those who have served. And I was just watching a bit of a documentary today that shared that on D-Day on Omaha Beach, we lost 3,000 people in 24 hours, which just hit me like a ton of bricks. So thank you, Rick, for bringing up that remembrance. Likewise, the Benita Unified School District, the Laverne St. Demas Ed Foundation that supports that district, has a wellness program going on, trying to raise money to help all of our schools provide wellness services, therapists and consultants on each campus, as well as developing wellness rooms and places that students can go to seek the peace that they may need. And with what's been going on, schools don't always feel safe. So let's likewise think about those we lost in the past few weeks. I can't mention names because I'll just lose it entirely. But I'm looking forward to Election Day tomorrow, which is the final day for everyone to vote, so please do. And after tomorrow, I get my friend back, so thank you.
Well, again, for those that we lost over the last few weeks, it's been challenging at best. It's hard to lose family members. Number two, Mr. Vaughn, thank you about D-Day. That's a very important thing to remember. That the freedoms that we love and cherish today are because of those people that laid their lives down for that. I do appreciate that. We must remember those as we just celebrated a wonderful Memorial Day celebration. There's been, as everybody said, there's been a lot of stuff going on here. Graduations, we've got some coming up. Ramona, there was an Eagle Scout presentation over at the Methodist Church. They've been catching up because a lot of the Eagle Scouts became Eagle rank, but they have to have their presentation in order to them in advance. And is there anybody in here that's an Eagle Scout? This audience right here?
He is over there.
Mr. Weinraub. Our newest officer, Mr. Weinraub, I was so fortunate to go to his Eagle Scout. And congratulations. Takes a lot of care. It's so nice to have me speak. It takes a village to raise a child. And, it's a lot of work and effort behind when an Eagle Scout becomes an Eagle. And it takes a whole village to make that happen, between their Scoutmasters and the Scouts and all the stuff that they do and their Eagle Scout projects and things like that. So we just live in a great community, and I'm just blessed to be here. And I just want to say that good luck tomorrow. It closes at 8 o'clock tomorrow night, which will be probably one of the most wonderful times in the world. And as Councilmember Carter so wonderfully stated, get those signs and throw them away, please. So,
especially up Esperanza,
yes.
okay?
So, best luck to all in the election. And we have a reason for a closed session. Is that correct, Mr. Rusky?
We have several. So there'll be a conference with legal counsel on anticipated litigation. So, and that's under Government Code 54957.9, subsection B13, like in this case. And then there's conference with legal negotiators under 54957.6, and the listed groups and individuals are identified on the agenda.
So we will be recessing the closed session, but we are going to adjourn. And Robin Carter, would you please like to do the adjournment? Please.
Thank you. In memory of retired Laverne Fire Chief Pete Jankowski. Chief Jankowski was hired as a firefighter paramedic with Laverne Fire in 1999. He assumed numerous internal collateral duties, served as a state incident management team member, and acquired multiple state fire training certificates. After promoting through the captain and battalion chief ranks, he was eventually appointed as a permanent fire chief in 2013. Post in private sector organizational consultant. Throughout his career, he achieved extraordinary academic and operational successes, which Laverne Fire will continue to benefit from for many years to come. Chief Jankowski's commitment to the city of Laverne, fire department, and the fire service overall was commendable. Having selflessly protected human mankind from Pearl from over 2 decades. His contributions to the betterment of the job are goals we can and should all aspire to. Chief Jankowski is survived by his wife, Michelle, and 2 children. Pete was a friend to many, a servant to all, and a true hero to Laverne.
Thank you, Councilmember Carter. We will be recessing to closed session. We will not be reporting out. Is that correct? Our next regular scheduled meeting is June 20th, 22 at 6:30 p.m. Thank you all.
Can't be